I'll call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee for November 15th. The first item is the roll call. Bill?
Haniro,
Here.
Ramsey,
Here.
Kuhn,
Here.
Olson, all present.
Okay, great, thank you. Next, we have approval of the minutes of the November 1st, 2022 Finance Committee meeting.
This is Alder Kuhn. I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
How's Letty doing? Good.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All right, there being no discussion. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Moving on to the audit of the bills to be paid. Bill, do we have any updates?
No updates or additions tonight.
All right, great. Could I have a motion then?
Ramsey will move approval.
Thank you.
This is Alder Kuhn. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the audit of the bills to be paid signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Moving on to the resolutions. This is very exciting. We have two resolutions. The first one is 2022-62, approving the 2023 City of Middleton budget for all funds. Who would like to make a motion?
This is Alder Kuhn. I'll make that motion.
Thank you. I will second it. Any discussion?
I have a comment, if you could. I just wanted to note, I had a discussion with the EMS director earlier today, and although there was not a recommendation as part of the budget process to change the ambulance fees, typically the council in the month of December has reviewed the ambulance billing fee schedule and in the past considered increases. And he would like the opportunity to prepare information that could come to the Finance Committee for consideration at likely the December 6th council meeting. If there were a consideration of a change in fees, it would only be an increase to revenue rather than a reduction. I think it's something that could be taken action on later, but just wanted to give you the heads up that that's something that he'd like the opportunity to come in and discuss.
Okay, great. Thank you for that information. And would the chief then give a presentation, or just we would receive a recommendation?
Yeah, he was going to prepare information on what has been done in the past, what a recommendation would be for fee levels, and I let him know that there was a request for information on what comparable rates are in other communities.
Okay,
And that's potentially December 6th, you said?
Yeah, be the first meeting in December.
I'll be gone for that meeting.
okay. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving Resolution 2022-62, approving the 2023 City of Middleton budget for all funds, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, so that's 3, 4, 1 against. All right, moving on to Resolution 2022-63, approving the levying of property taxes for the 2022 tax year, 2023 budget year.
This is Alder Kuhn. I'll make that motion to approve.
Thank you. I'll second it. Any discussion or updates from Bill?
No updates.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of approving Resolution 2022-63, approving the levying of property taxes for the 2022 tax year, 2023 budget year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution passes. Moving on to agreements and contracts, we have a task order with Strand Associates in an amount not to exceed $39,900 for engineering services for well number 4 rehabilitation.
Ramsey will move approval.
Thank you.
This is Alder Kuhn. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
So Sean, it's always Strand and Associates. Have we looked at anyone else too, or you're just happy with them?
Is that on? Now it is. I would say more the latter than the former. Strand Associates has been the utility engineer of choice for decades. They've prepared a lot of our sewer plans, our water plans. They have our network modeling, and they've consistently given really good advice. So they operate well on our behalf, I would say.
So you think this is pretty competitive?
I think this is a fair price. It's identical to the price they had for the Well 3 rehabilitation, engineering, and construction phase services last year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? All right, thank you, Sean. Okay, all those in favor of approving the award of bids, the task order with Strand Associates in an amount not to exceed $39,900 for engineering services for well number 4 rehabilitation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Moving on to bids and quotes. We have one item, award of bids to Boley Tree and Landscape for 2022 small and large street tree pruning. This is two bids, one for small and one for large.
This is Alder Kuhn. I'll make that motion.
Thank you. I'll second it. All right, any discussion?
So I don't see Mark here, but Kylie, you can answer some of those things. I wonder that, so the large trees, for the amount which you're wondering, it will be about 500 trees. And how did you come up with these numbers and where would they be, these trees? Or maybe Mark is coming later or what?
I can go grab him. I'm not able to comment on that.
Sure,
Okay.
Perfectly fine.
thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? I just had a question about the single bid. I guess it's similar there to your question. I'm just wondering, do we have, is there any competition?
Yeah.
Would we
Yeah,
accept?
well, you can go ahead and ask that first, so
Hi, Mark, you want to come on up? The mayor had a question, and then I also had a question about
Sure.
just, the single bid. Is there any other way to find companies that might be interested in doing business with the city?
So the way the bid process works for the tree pruning is the same process that Streets uses. It's the Quest system. So it's all online, and that's a subscription service. And it goes out to whoever subscribes to that system. So it is limited to those people that are part of that system because you do have to pay to download the bid specs for what we're doing. At the same time, we utilize that system because then it is all online. I don't get any of the bids myself. Everything is kind of locked up until the bid closes, and then it's a public opening. So it does not allow for any kind of implied or thought of like bias type of thing. So you get that? So the only way to really try to do anything else would be to probably say, hey, everybody, X, Y, and Z, you can go to Quest and try to find it and look at it if you want, but then they would have to subscribe to that system. I will say that, and Sean can comment on it too, that Quest really is well utilized throughout the state in terms of numbers of folks that subscribe to it. I do know that as a whole, two main factors really play against us getting a lot of bids right now. One, tree companies, like a lot of places, are having a hard time finding people that actually want to do that kind of labor. It's not exactly the funnest job. The second thing is that when times are good, like right now, there's a whole heck of a lot of private property business to do. So what that means is they can make more money on the private side of the spectrum. When times are tough, like back in 2012 when we had that first recession, people are flocking to us to get our work. But it's not something that really appeals to a lot of folks right now.
And do you know offhand what it costs to subscribe to the Quest system?
That's the part I wanted to clarify. It actually doesn't have a cost to be part of Quest or to look at Quest. It has a fee for downloading plans and being a plan holder, much like any other plan room or plan holder fee that we typically would have had when we did paper prints with paper books, and we did the distribution here. We always charged for that too. In fact, this, I think, is a $30 fee, which is nominal for most bidders.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Which is not much, yeah.
Thank you.
Right, so it's really inexpensive and very efficient for us to use that.
Okay. Mayor,
So Mark, I have a question for you. From what I understand, we are a little bit behind in pruning. So I imagine that this will be the city staff doing some pruning as well, or is it only these folks doing the small trees and large trees? And the second is, I don't know, how did you come up with these values between small trees and large trees? It looks like large trees will be between 500, 600 trees, and I didn't work out how many small trees would be. And how do you, is it a particular area, or what's your plan? How do you handle it?
Yeah, it's a pruning block, so everybody knows where we're pruning and what the breakdown of those trees are. And that's all done through our GIS inventory of street trees. And for this pruning block, it's the central part of the city for that. In terms of what constitutes a small tree or a large tree, it's the size of diameter of the trunk. So 7 inches and under is the small trees. Anything larger is the large tree for that. And then lastly, in terms of other trees that are being pruned, yes, we do prune other trees ourselves, but those are really limited to more of, I guess I'd say, the medium size and under, just because of vehicle, like equipment and experience limitations.
So, Sean, this is for you too. In the past, I thought even the public works did help with the pruning. Do we still do it or not? Or if not, why not?
They prune trees if they don't have any other work to do. That's the simplest way to put it. So if there's snow to plow or other work to do, then they're doing that. If there is not anything else for them to do, then they ask us what they can do. At the same time, they are limited in what they focus on is the street clearance aspect of tree pruning. They don't do anything on the private property side of trees for pruning.
Okay. So how far behind we are in pruning, and how are you going to catch up?
Well, as you know, I did ask for more funding this year in the capital budget. That was not approved. So really, it is a kind of a case of we prune what we can, and there isn't much else we can do, to be completely honest with you, because we're limited on equipment and staff. So unless we get more out there, then we do what we can, and that's pretty much the extent of it. In terms of how far behind we are, I guess that's a subjective question. I don't think we're critically behind, or even to the point where we're going to start having claims at all or anything like that from being behind.
Okay.
But, depending on who you ask, their tree always needs more pruning. So, it's just kind of the nature of it.
Okay, so it's okay. It's not critical.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
okay, any other comments or questions? No? Okay, then all those in favor of approving the award of bids to Boley Tree and Landscape for 2020, that should be 2023, right? 2023.
22,
Okay, I'm going to stick with the actual title for 2022 Small and Large Street Tree Pruning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Moving on to miscellaneous. We have 3 items. Starting with consideration and potential action on request from the Airport Commission on purchase of fuel truck to offer 94 UL fuel. I will move that we approve this request.
This is Alder Kuhn. I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, discussion. I hope everybody had a chance to read the very good memo that Brian put together after the Airport Commission meeting. Basically, the council earlier this year, there it is, March 1st, 2022, authorized funding assistance for a fuel farm to make it possible to offer the unleaded fuel. And because the Airport Commission wants to make sure that the airport is as good a neighbor as possible, we decided to try instead to expedite this by getting a used truck that can deliver 94 unleaded fuel, which is available now, not to all planes. It's not the universal 100 unleaded that's been approved, but is not commercially available yet. This would only be available to, I think, around 45% of the planes. And
It's actually
Or
60.
60%.
60%, thank you. So it's not a perfect solution, but it's a very short, we can implement it almost immediately. And so the Airport Commission is recommending that we change the recommendation. I'm going to make two motions, one to rescind the approval of the scope and the funding that council made in March, and replace it instead with the purchase of this fuel truck. And I believe, well, I could do it now or could wait until the council meeting.
Well, just one concern, and this is just something that for the Airport Commission to be watching. Since this fuel is not appropriate for all airplanes, to direct that your FBO or airplane company come up with criteria to make sure that only planes that can properly use 94 UL use it. Because we don't want to have a plane go down that has lower octane fuel and have a crash, which could be blamed on the city. So it's something that we don't have to worry about, but we better make sure that our FBO is ready to establish criteria to make sure that doesn't happen.
Establish
Oh,
criteria. Yes, Mayor.
well, Mark has his hand up, so.
Oh, hi, Mark. Come on up, please. I'm just jotting down what Larry said.
I have some information that will help with that. So, last year, I believe it was, the Airport Commission Chairperson, John Halleck, worked with Rich Morey to list all the aircraft at the airport and which ones could use the fuel and which ones can't. So there is awareness of that already. It's a very good point, Larry. But I'm sure every pilot wants to make sure they're using the right fuel too. So this won't be a problem. We've actually made some headway on this already.
Okay, good.
So
thank you.
Mark, is it possible that people may be a little bit reluctant to use it?
Well, it's my understanding from the Airport Commission discussion that they are that the city is going to look at having it be offered at the same price, which require a subsidy from the city, so that there's incentive to use it. I mean, Lisa, you can speak to that better. But I don't think that, I think most pilots embrace unleaded fuel. It's just not been available. And it's available at some airports, the 94 UL is, but not many. And when it is available, pilots, I've talked to the airport manager in Sauk Prairie before, and he said he's got a good number of people who buy it. It's just not been available because it's not available for all planes. So
Sauk Prairie, do they have both
they have
100 LL and the other?
100 LL and 94 UL.
And,
Yes, and Wanakee has 94 UL as well.
And people are using both of them? They're both used by the
Yes,
pilots?
yes. And some aircraft, higher performance aircraft, need the 100 low lead because they need the 100 octane.
So do they subsidize 94 UL?
I don't know the pricing in those airports. I don't know.
Well, my point in bringing it up is presumably it is not only the airplanes based at Maury Airport that buy gas there. If you,
Right.
And so I think it's important to be clear that there's a means to determine that every plane that wants to use it is vetted in a way that is satisfactory to Maury.
There's a list
So
of,
that
I'm sorry.
only those planes that can use it, use it.
I'm going to guess that Rich Morey would say, we already offer two different kinds of fuel, and the pilots, there must be guidance, or he's got guidance for those two types, and this would just be a new third type. This, the same requirement would apply, but I've put that,
Well, when a plane goes down and they're looking for excuses, this would be an excuse. So it's inherent upon the city to make sure that Maury does its job and is very careful.
all right, well, we'll make sure that Rich does his job.
Every pilot, like every driver, wants to return home at night.
Right.
And I think the pilots are well aware of what their engines and aircraft are certified. And if not, we will make sure that they're aware of it. But I can't imagine that any of them aren't aware of it. But we will redouble our efforts in that.
So the second part will be, Lisa, you probably will come to it, subsidizing it. Where is that money going to come from?
That is a different discussion.
Okay.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
Alder Kuhn.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited about this. I knew that Sauk Prairie was using the 94. My question is, I see it's in Ohio, the current truck. If we were procuring it, when would it arrive, estimated time, or ready for use? Any knowledge?
Well, the first step was getting council's
Approve
permission
it.
to do this.
Right.
And I would imagine tomorrow, if we approve this, there will be action to schedule an inspection, get the ball rolling.
I don't know if it's still available. We hope it still is. I did
Okay.
not locate it. I think either John Halleck or Rich Morey
Rich
did.
did, I think.
Rich did, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I will say I will not be driving the truck back. I will.
Yeah, well, the truck won't be driving back. It's going to be
It's going to be loaded.
transported back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was just making a joke.
okay. Well, then I'm gonna make my two motions now, and then maybe at the council meeting, we can just go with the new version. Okay, so I'm going to move to rescind the approval in March 2022 of $45,000 from TID 3 and $30,000 from the Airport Enterprise Fund for Design, Engineering, and Construction Administration for a fuel farm project.
And you're replacing it with, I'm sorry.
That's the motion to rescind. And
Okay.
once that's approved, my next one will be to put the money.
I will
I thought
second your rescind.
I thought what I saw was that it was 30,000 from TID 3 and 30,000 from the airport fund.
No, that was
45.
withdrawn.
That
That
was-
was in our comments, or,
That
That
was,
was withdrawn, it's 4530, so.
yeah, that was a substitute, it was a substitute motion
oh,
that
that was
didn't,
withdrawn.
yeah.
Okay, But I thought that's, my computer just went off, so I'm waiting for it to come back up.
Yeah, there was a motion by,
Bring that up at the bottom. Okay, so it said, made a substitute motion,
but then
and then it was,
that was withdrawn. And then Sullivan's amended motion passed.
okay, so it was 3 steps down. Okay,
Yep,
back to the original. No, wait, Sullivan. So there was a substitute and an amended. Either
So
way,
I-
okay, 45 and 30, okay.
yep,
Yep, I think this is, the center section here is Sullivan's motion, which is the motion that passed.
Because I was reading it as they were made, okay.
yeah, so the change will be both in the amount and then also the scope, because it's not the cost of doing the design, engineering, and construction administration, it's just getting the truck. So I think Alder Kuhn accepted my motion.
Yeah.
All right, so you seconded it. Any discussion of that motion besides what we just discussed?
So Larry, we need to do that?
All right, so all those in favor of rescinding the approval from March 2022, 45,000 from TID 3 and 30,000 from the airport.
Wait, I do have one comment.
Okay, go ahead.
After the fuel is available, we still have to we have to build this tank, right?
No, no.
We
Eventually,
don't-
no,
don't
we won't
have
need
to.
the third one, you're right, okay.
So all those in favor of the motion to rescind the approval from March 2022 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's approved. Now I'm going to move that we approve the use of $30,000 in airport enterprise funds and not to exceed $15,000 in TID 3 funds to purchase a fuel truck to offer 94 UL fuel, subject to, 1, proper inspection of the vehicle, concluding with a satisfactory inspection report. 2, ongoing maintenance of the truck to be funded by the airport enterprise fund. And 3, the FBO establishing criteria to ensure proper usage of the 94 UL fuel.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I have a question. There's going to be a residual value when they don't need this truck any longer, so when it's sold, I'd like the funds to be first go back into TID 3, and any additional, if there's any more after that, to go back to the airport fund when it's for the resale.
I will amend my motion to include the line, anything residual will come back to TID 3 after sale of the truck. Alder Kuhn, you're okay with that? Okay.
Well, you have to do it proportionately, right? So, I mean, I don't know whatever it'll sell for, so,
Well, they said
I-
it would have I mean, it's pretty well depreciated now, so
Right.
it wouldn't get that much lower, so. It'd be nice to get it back, the TID funds back.
But just a point of clarification, if the total cost ends up being 45,000 and 30,000 is coming from the airport, 15,000 from the TID, is the intention that, say it sells for 20,000, 15,000 would go back to the TID, and then the remainder would go back to the airport fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
I
Mark
think-
wants to say
Oh.
something.
Mark, you want to say something?
I just wanted to see clarification too, in addition to what Bill said, if I may. So the motion that was adopted by the council in last winter was 45,000 from TID 3 and 30,000 from the airport fund. But if I heard you right correctly, Alder Hanayro, you're actually proposing to have more of the funding coming from the airport fund. Was that intentional?
30.
Yes, the same 30 from the airport enterprise fund, but since the cost that we're estimating isn't,
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, I mean, instead of 3 parts TID and 2 parts airport fund, you're flipping that around. I just want to make sure that was intentional.
yes.
Okay.
All right, any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. And I will make a substitute motion when the time, or I'll make a motion that's much more
Okay.
succinct when we get there in the council meeting. All right, moving on to item number 2, an ordinance amendment to the sanitary sewer rates.
Approval?
All right,
Alder Kuhn will second that.
thank you. Any questions?
Well, I would actually want to say our, water department has done really a great job here. So the Madison sewer system, their rate for Middleton was going to go up by 12.45%. And whatever our department did, that's actually 4-point-some%, which is great. So I think I'm really pleased with that, So Sean, you probably wouldn't know. Well, I talked briefly to Dave, so.
I had a question for Larry on this. The ordinance says in the title, an ordinance to amend section, you see it right there, of the City of Middleton General Ordinances. And I had asked Bill earlier, last week we heard from a constituent during the budget hearing, and he was commenting on just how dense and complicated the budget was, and, you'd try to to figure it out, but, I took his comment to heart. And here it says general ordinances. Elsewhere we see, in the same packets for tonight, it says the city code of ordinance, and then in another one, it says the municipal code. So I would like to make sure that going forward, we use the same language so residents don't think general ordinance is a different document than the municipal code. And so,
That's a wonderful idea. This ordinance that you have is based on one I did many years ago, and now it's done in-house by the city, and it's fine in terms of substance, but my general preference would be that we always amend the Middleton Municipal Code.
That's the technical term for, okay, the Middleton Municipal Code.
Change it then.
Do you want to do that?
I'll make a motion then that we refer that issue of the, getting all the ordinances titled the same to L&O.
Second.
Any further discussion of that? I would just add,
Meeting without it having,
without having it been noticed,
It's just a referral.
I think it's.
Just referral.
okay.
I would note that the website refers to the City Code of Ordinances, so that would have to be part of it, yeah. Okay, all those in favor of Alder Ramsey's motion to refer the issue to L&O, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I think that's really good to clean it up.
I think so too. Okay, so back to the sanitary sewer rates. Any discussion of that one? If not, all those in favor of approving the ordinance amendment to the sanitary sewer rates signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Last item on our agenda is the potential purchase of Trotta Apartments at 3001 Parmenter Street by WHPC and proposed Lura and we have too many acronyms. The proposed land use restriction agreement, I think it is, and payment in lieu of taxes or pilot agreement. I'm going to make a motion that we approve this.
This is Alder Kuhn, I'll second.
All right,
And
discussion.
understand this is a conceptual review. This will come back to you again. This is basically taking the temperature of the Finance Committee and the Common Council on whether this will happen. The city has approval authority on assignments, which is one of the things that go on here. So that'll have to be done. And, of course, there will be a pilot agreement drafted. The numbers are fine, they've been vetted by staff, but we do need to do that. So this is simply more like a comfort approval rather than a final approval.
So I do have a question.
Alder Ramsey?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. So, no TIF funds have, or no payments have been made under the TIF agreement. And it says that you would enter into a 30-year land use restrictive to restrict 75% of the units. Who is that agreement with? Is that- Mike, you want to?
Yeah, if you could.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Slavish here representing Wisconsin Housing Preservation Corp. So that agreement would be with our organization, Dan. So WHPC or the LLC that would be set up to own and manage this particular asset.
So I have a question for Bill. The pilot and TIF money will be about the same. So earlier, the agreement was 15, now it's 30 years, right?
That is correct.
So which is good.
We think that's a good thing for the city, yes.
Yeah. So the TIF money will equal to the pilot money, right?
Yeah, so under the TIF agreement, the increment would be calculated based on the increased value of the property, which is an assessed value of, in the TIF agreement, it was estimated at 15.6 million. And of that, 75% would be applied to the project, 25% to the general TID, until the TID is paid off, and then that full amount would come onto the city's tax base. Under the pilot agreement, we looked at what would be the amount necessary to make the city whole in terms of the city taxes on the property. So we looked at what would be the estimated city portion of the taxes on the full value of the property. So the base value plus the incremental value, which is 17 million, and then took the city's estimated tax rate going into this tax year. And the city portion of the tax bill is a bit higher than 25%. It's closer to about 30%. So amount of the pilot agreement at the 91,000 would be higher than just the 25% of the TIF increment on the incremental value, but we were trying to look long-term, what would be the city taxes on the full value of the property?
So that's a good thing then. Thank you.
I believe so. Yeah, I think that the intention was to try to identify a number that would, as close as possible, be a hold harmless for the city. The other change with the, if this goes forward with a payment in lieu of taxes agreement instead of a TIF district, is under the TIF agreement that remaining value, the 25%, would be required to be retained within the TID, and that it wouldn't be until the TID closure that the property becomes available on the general tax base. If this, once the TIF agreement would be terminated, that payment in lieu of taxes would be available to come into the city's general fund as general fund revenue, since it wouldn't be tied to the TIF agreement.
So that after 2036, when that F5 closes, so then it just comes to the general fund, period.
Well, with a TIF project, the way it would work is that for the base value, which is approximately $2 million roughly, that is being paid, and that is part of the general tax base. The incremental value of the building, the $15.5 million roughly, the taxes paid on that would be entirely within the TIF district. 75% would be allocated to the project as TIF incentive payments, 25% retained by the TID. When the TID closes, then that tax base becomes available as part of the city's general tax base and the general tax base for the other taxing jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you.
If the property becomes tax exempt and there's a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, there would be no incremental value in the TIF district, so there would be no TIF increment collected within the TID. There would be a separate agreement between the city and WHPC where they would make annual payments in lieu of taxes, and that would be a general revenue of the city.
Thank you.
Larry, is that your understanding as well? That
Yes.
was my understanding in
I
talking
thought you were
with Matt
going a
Fleming.
different direction from where you were going, but that's exactly right.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Wait, how many units, is 75% of them are workforce housing? How many units are in the buildings?
There are 126 units total. I think the current arrangement is that 50 of those, or 40% of the total units, would be established at 60% AMI. I think that's the current TIF arrangement, and that would remain in place for a period of 15 years. What we're proposing is that those same 50 units at 60% AMI would remain, and they would remain in perpetuity or during the 30-year LURA. In addition to that, there would be 47 units that would be established at 80% AMI as well, and those two would be in place for the entire 30-year period. So that would be an additional benefit over the agreement that you have currently with Impact 7.
Just for my, what are some of the oldest buildings that you have? Like if you have 30 years, do you have some that are like in their 15s and 20s?
Under official, in our portfolio, in Wisconsin Housing Preservation Corp., for those that are not familiar with us, we are the state's largest owner and developer of affordable housing with 8,500 units throughout the state. So we have a lot of different programs. Normally, state tax credit requirements are a 30-year LURA. We do not have projects that are in excess of that, but given that we are a not-for-profit, we tend to hold those units as affordable, arguably in perpetuity. That's really what our mission's all about. Thus the preservation in our name. That's what it's for, preserving those as affordable.
And throughout that time, you make the improvements to the buildings, keep them up, and
We do, yes.
And do you cover the utilities for the people usually? Is it different for every building or different?
Within those affordable units, so the 80% units and the 60% units, there would be a utility allowance that has to be included as part of the rent calculation.
Thank you. For the 30 years is a much better thing for the workforce housing. Thank you.
No, I think this is excellent arrangement.
Any further questions? Or Bill?
Yeah, so as Larry had indicated, tonight this is essentially a conceptual approval. We would anticipate that there'd be documents drafted if there's support tonight to come back on December 6th. And just wanted to make sure that everyone understands with the timing. Since the property was assessed for this year, it will receive a tax bill that will go out in December of this year. And my understanding of the intention is that there would be if this goes forward, there would be an assignment of the current TIF agreement to WHPC as the new purchaser. They would be paying the taxes. They would receive 1 year of the tax increment based on those taxes. They would apply for property tax exemption as of 1/1/23. So in December of 2023, there would be no tax bill, and the payment in lieu of taxes would begin in 2024. Okay, and we'll work with Larry and Matt and WHPC to draft the necessary documents for the next meeting.
And those documents will be ready in time for closing on the 31st?
If council takes action on this.
All right, okay, so Finance Committee members, we all seem to approve this in concept, and we'll look forward to seeing.
There is a motion, you could take a vote on a conceptual approval. There would still be action on the 6th, but typically, with conceptual approvals for TIF agreements, we
Okay.
have taken a vote.
So I'll amend my motion to discuss to approve the potential purchase, or the concept, to approve in concept the potential purchase of Trotta Apartments. Alder Kuhn, are you okay with changing that to?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. We need a motion to adjourn.
This is Alder Kuhn. I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Great job, 18 more
All
minutes.
right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you.